Good evening, everyone. I'd like to welcome you all to the Lewiston, City of Lewiston Planning Board meeting of September 9th. My name is Lucy Bisson, and I would ask Amy if she would call the roll, please.
Roger Dupree.
Here.
Mark Roy.
Here.
Michael Marcotte.
Present.
Lucy Bisson.
Present.
Alex Pine.
Here.
Amy Smith. Here.
Okay, absent is Shanna Cox, and
Jama. Oh.
And here is Jama. Come sit down. You're on time, just in time. And for the record, city staff that is attending is John Connor, Director, Planning and Code and Enforcement, Shelley Norton, Deputy Director, City Planner, Craig Tebow, City Planner, and Linda Tripp, Administrative Assistant. Craig, do we have any adjustments to the agenda?
No. No adjustments.
And any correspondence? We're given
yes.
a revision to Article 15, significant buildings.
So there was a minor revision that we were given from David Chittum, or Councilor
Okay. And then,
Well, we were also giving you a memo with a change to the definition of historic value.
okay. Okay, great.
Yep.
And there are no public hearings this evening, and so in other business, the planning board sending a recommendation to the city council for an amendment to the zoning and land use codes for changes to Article 15, significant buildings and districts, for changes to definitions and review of signs. And I don't know, Craig or Shelley, one's from, guys want to condense
Sure.
these comments for us, please?
So, right, so Article 15, these changes have been in the works for, since 2022. They were first started to be discussed by the Historic Preservation Review Board. And sorry, this is the, coming off of the memo dated August 2024, that has all of the attachments for the signs, the excerpt from the Lewiston Historic Preservation Design Manual, and it has excerpts from the minutes from the August 14th, 2023 meeting. So it's that whole memo together. So anyway, the Historic Preservation Review Boards first started addressing these changes in 2022, brought it to the Planning Board in August of 2023. The Planning Board had some concerns, wanted some clarifying information, so we took us a little while to put that together, but we are here now. And these changes will, for the most part, there are some changes to the definitions. We are changing, historical value to historical significance, or in some cases, historic value to historical significance. We are changing the definition for exterior architectural features, which will have an impact on how we review, or what triggers the requirement for a certificate of appropriateness with the Historic Preservation Review Board. And we are changing or clarifying how staff, or the allowance that staff has to review signs when they are minor in nature. So those are the three main changes. The last one, the staff review of signs, is that is addressed, or there's additional information in the packet that shows the different signs that staff have approved in approximately the last 12 months. You can sort of see as you look through the packet that there is there is some variety in the signs that staff have approved. They're not all they've not been enforced to be consistent or within a range. There's been some flexibility. So we've attached a few examples of those signs that we've approved. We have also attached As I mentioned, the language for the Lewiston Historic Preservation Design Manual that goes into different criteria that we need to look at, that staff need to look at when we are reviewing signs in historic district. So we have placement, and this is in the Lewiston Historic Preservation Design Manual, page 86, the excerpt, page 86. So we have placement and location of signs is part of the review criteria. We need to easily confirm that there is a recognizable sign area, and that, you know, in just that language itself gives us some flexibility, but you know, some of it is, it gives us some flexibility. There is text, and that's on page 87. Text is regulated. Text should be kept to a minimum, and unnecessary slogans should be avoided. So if a sign, for instance, is too busy with slogans or too busy with, you know, other symbols, we usually request that an applicant sort of tone it down, and we've done that on really only on one occasion. Color on page 88, and actually this is important. It says color is not. It says color while not regulated by the review board. So again, whenever we review something like that, we, if we have sort of notes or suggestions, it's usually worded as a recommendation to them, because they don't, it's not regulated by us. Materials, so we want, you know, don't put a cardboard sign out there that's gonna get rained on and get moldy. It has to be of a condition to, of a quality to withstand weather conditions. So they give some examples: exterior grade plywood, cast bronze or brass applied lettering. So, you know, most, and again, all of the signs you'll see, they are of, you know, people don't come to us with signs that don't meet that condition. And lighting is usually the one that we get hung up on. That's sort of the one that causes issues. Lighting should be subdued and front lit, using incandescent bulbs. So there was an instance recently that we reviewed a sign for LA Arts where they had a backlit sign, and staff was not able to review that. It was not, we couldn't really deem it as minor in nature, or if we did review it, we would have to, we couldn't approve it because it was backlit. And so at that point, we sent it to the board itself for their review. They had some minor changes, some minor tweaks, and it was ultimately approved.
I have a comment. In this, it says incandescent lights.
Mhm.
Incandescent are not, you know, I mean, should we be thinking of changing that word?
Yeah,
Because it, you know, in the near future, they're just not going to be available. And, you know, people who want to make a sign need to have options. So I think that word should be changed. I'm not sure what it should be, but I think it should be, you know, because everything is now LED. That's, you know, and so I think we have to be careful about using this, maybe add or LED or something. Okay, let's
Yeah.
think about it.
Absolutely, yeah. The
Okay.
design standards are from 1999.
Well,
and
yeah,
staff
you know.
has identified that it would be helpful to update them, but it hasn't
Well-
happened yet.
Well, that's why I'm mentioning it,
Yeah.
that word, you know, that something should be thought of at some point. Okay,
I
continue,
think
Clark, I'm sorry.
that's why lighting is one of our trickier elements that we
Yeah.
deal with because of how antiquated that section is.
Yeah.
so that's,
Excuse me, Craig, do people have to come to you first before they initiate the sign, and you approve it before they can put it up?
so a lot of what, the way the process works out usually is somebody will apply for a sign. It is then handed off to either Steve or Travis, and, you know, one of the code officers. They flag it as a sign in a historic district, and then you send it to me. I review it using the criteria I just provided. I'll write up a certificate of appropriateness, which is also in the packet. Attach it to the sign permit application and just send it back. Most of the time, the applicant doesn't even know that they need a COA. We just review it using the sign permit application that they've provided, and just pass it on. It's usually maybe delays them about a day if I'm held up.
Question. A while back when we first came upon this, I think what they said, or what was presented to our board, is that the sign wasn't supposed to be an advertising criteria. Yet, there's one on there, the Rainbow Cycle, which I think is on the cusp. Because the thing is that they've got 2 bicycles in that mural with Rainbow Cycle. Now, how does that qualify?
So I didn't personally review that, the Rainbow Bike
So
sign mural.
murals are treated differently than signs. So the certificate of appropriateness is required for signs in the historic district. Murals are only reviewed by the historic board if they're going on a historic building. So depending upon what the facility is that the mural is going on, it might not require historic review.
Yeah, but it has the sign there, but it also has the name of the business that's associated with the sign.
I think the sign might have already been existing.
No, Rainbow Bicycle, they just did that a couple of years ago.
Yeah.
They had a mural
mural.
previously, so I think the Rainbow Bicycle part of it was existing. I'm not sure.
I don't have a clue.
I believe, Shelley, what you're saying is the lettering was on the side of the building and the mural was painted around the lettering.
Right. Yeah, I
think-
understand
and
that.
To
I
me,
think
that
that's the
constitutes,
case.
Advertising for the business.
Okay.
Well, yeah, that was something that came up a while back when we were talking about murals, and the murals, we were told the murals were not supposed to be advertising, supposed to be a mural, a picture, not have advertising, which Rainbow Bicycle is, and I don't object to it, don't get me wrong, but it's just a good example. Yeah, it says Rainbow Bicycle. I mean, if it was just the bicycles and the guys or the people on the bike and the background and all that, great. But it says Rainbow Bicycle, and if we look at the mural language, it says no advertising, if I recall correctly. That's your recollection too? Yeah, we had a discussion about that. So, not necessarily tonight, but maybe you guys can look at it and look at it, because I don't object to Rainbow Bicycle's mural. I mean, I think it's fine, and the name there and all that, but it's just that when we were discussing murals, it was specified, in my recollection, it was specified that it shouldn't have an advertisement component to it. And Rainbow Bicycles does.
Yeah,
So
the
if
exact language.
it's like Alexander said, it's like Alex said, that they, the name was there and they painted the mural around it, again, that's kind of crossing, stretching the line a little bit, I mean, they could have started it before,
Sure.
below the name or something.
They are allowed to have a wall sign. The mural definition says it cannot contain trademarks, logos, or words associated with the business or obscene or hateful material. So I can't speak for the review that would have taken place at that time. We can certainly look at it.
No, it's
but-
just, but it was,
Yep.
yeah, but that's.
It could create an issue, though. That's what I'm getting at. Somebody can come in and say, well, Rainbow Cycles has got this, and this is what I want. Now what do you do?
Well, in most situations when something like that, you just view that as a sort of pre-existing, possibly non-conforming condition that's allowed to continue. And, if somebody were to come forward, say on a totally different situation, blank wall, they want to put up a sign, not a sign, they want to paint a sign, and then possibly put a mural around it, we would we'd have to know exactly what they're proposing, but it could very well need to, come to us for that sign review if it is an advertisement.
Okay. All right, anything, did you want to read the September 9th revision?
Yes, let me find that.
While so that we can,
I
talk
can do that.
about everything at the same time.
So, yeah, so those, what we handed out tonight, which is an adjustment to the historic value definition, is sort of an add-on to the memo that Craig had provided that changed historic value to historical significance. This, though, seeks to rewrite the definition so it's more streamlined and shorter, essentially. We believe that we've kept the important elements in that definition, but that we've just made it easier to understand and taken out a lot of the examples that weren't really necessary in order to understand the definition. We did have one minor tweak. The word everyday, we realized after the memo was written, should be hyphenated, so we wanted to add that. And that's in the fourth sentence down of the clean copy at the bottom of your page.
Okay. Okay, any comments, questions? What do we want to, where do we want to go, guys?
Is there a reason why age of the requisition was included?
For the sign review condition?
No, for the historic. In other words, like you take an antique vehicle, it has to be at least 20 years old before it can become an antique. Now you're talking historic. In other words, does the building have to be 75 or 100 years old to be considered historic?
Oh,
I believe it's usually 50 years, but in this case, with this definition, it could be something related to a significant event more recently. It wouldn't have to hit that, age point. If it's architectural style, it would probably be longer term, but if there was a significant event, then that could be considered historic. So there's no date listed.
So this applies, all of this gobbledygook applies to any building, let's say, on Lisbon Street, correct? Most of it is,
Many on Lisbon are not.
Are
so
not
it varies.
well, yeah, but I'm saying this talks about a historic district and it talks about a historic building. So isn't like from Ash to Main Street a historic district on Lisbon Street? Or
Yeah.
is it strictly building by building? This is just for my information, because I don't know where the historic districts.
Yeah, Craig will pull up a map of where the historic districts are for
Okay.
you.
give me 1 second.
Yep. Anybody else have any questions or comments or anything? Okay.
Well, looking at the revisions, looks like we changed place to land, and I'm guessing that's for like practical purposes of like, we're talking about a piece of property. Would that be sort of the part of the definition that's applying to a historic district? Is that the intention with that?
Well, it could be a parcel of land without a building. That would be significant where a significant event took place, or
Got it.
maybe the building was
On this
burnt
lot,
down or
something
demolished.
happened?
Yeah, or
100 years
this
ago.
tree, or by this, river bank.
Yeah.
But there are, right, I mean, there could be.
Well-
Or a building could be demolished, but there's a reason why the site is still special to people and.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in lower Lisbon Street, there are between, what is it, Chestnut and Cedar, there's some holes in where buildings burned, and they're just a hole, and so could those spots, because a lot of those buildings are historic, because they're older, and because I know when the building burned, and now there's a sawtooth, and it's like a one-story that was a 3M club for many years. they capped the building at the first floor because that was salvageable. The rest of the 3-story building, 4-story building burned. And the 2 buildings on the side, one of the buildings had to come down because they were sharing a wall and anyways, it's a long time ago. But, so would those, could those possibly be this land that historic because it was historic buildings there?
Certainly, and it could also be archaeological finds or, remains from, prior to the built environment that we're used to. It could be native significance. So there could be a lot of reasons why a piece of land or landscape
Right.
is designated historic and not just a structure or building.
Okay.
So if that's the case, somebody wants to build something on there, what can they do? Do they have to build something with the conditions of it being a historic building?
So it's only if something gets designated, right? So,
Yeah, what I'm saying is, you have a designated historic building, it burns to the ground, now you've got a hole. Well, Joe contractor comes in, I want to build a building. What can I do? Do I have to build something in compliance to being historic, or can I put up any type of building that I want?
so if you're in the historic district, then the Historic Preservation Review Board has purview to review the design to make sure it's in character with the neighboring buildings in the district. If it's not in a district and it was just a historic building, not in a district, I believe there's no stipulations, but we would have to check with State Historic Preservation because that's really not a scenario that I've had before me to know what the protocol is. But I don't believe that there would be a requirement. If it's burned to the ground, if it was damaged, then that's a whole other thing, and we would probably be talking to the state about what's required.
Well, Wedgewood House, wouldn't that be a building, because
So
they're
that-
rehabbing that?
Yep.
But, basically, they're just keeping the shell.
Yeah,
So
Because
yes.
that's a historic building.
And they had to go to Historic Preservation Review Board for that design. They also had to go for some outbuilding and other modifications that they were demolishing. and
Yeah,
get-
because they
and get
moved the
approval.
garage or something, didn't they, or
There were
stuff
some
like
things,
that?
so.
Yeah, okay.
From a,
Oh, go ahead.
I was gonna say, from an ordinance perspective, do we talk about structures and buildings interchangeably, or are they different? I just sort of thinking, hypotheticals for interpretation in the future. So like, historical significant, it's a building or building or place. But like, let's say there's a, I don't know, historically significant fence. It's not a building, that this doesn't apply to that because it's a fence, not a building, and it's not land.
Or are we just being nitpicky?
I don't know if we define them separately, I guess is really more the question. And I
Yeah.
know it's pretty like pedantic
No.
and kind of silly, but like.
It actually isn't. So in Article 15, we define a building, so that would be for the significant buildings and districts section of the ordinance. A building means anything that is the result of having been built by humans, including without limitation any combination of materials forming shelter for animals or persons, and/or their activities or property, fences, signs, walks, terraces, landscaping, walls, driveways, and parking yards, and anything comprehended by the word structure. So it actually is really comprehensive.
Okay, and it's interchangeable.
It seems like it's meant
Yes,
to
we
be
say that
interchangeable.
there.
All
Yep.
right,
Comprehended by the word structure.
okay, all
So
right.
anything that's beyond comprehension, we're not gonna review.
No, let's hope not, let's hope not. Okay, so does anybody else have any questions or comments, or are we ready to send this out to, so if we're happy with the language that they're proposing, we need a motion to just send a favorable recommendation to the city council for these adjustments, for these amendments.
I just have a can I add one or two things first?
Sure.
So Craig has brought up the historic districts for you on the map behind you. So the buildings highlighted in red are historic buildings or structures. The pink area is the district itself, and then there's other portions of town, most notably Fry Street as well, that is a
Yeah.
historic district that's not in the screenshot you're seeing right there.
Yeah, no, I was just looking at the, yeah, so it is, the buildings that I'm thinking of are in the historic district.
Okay.
And like I say, what happened is there was some fires and the middle building was capped at the first floor. And it was a 3M club. I don't know if it's empty now or, and then on either side, the building, their buildings burned to the ground, were demolished. So it's just, snaggletooth that's sticking up there. And so for your concern about buildings on either side of that building, they would have to go to historical preservation. Did the new building that filled the big hole up on
The Hartley block?
the Hartley block, I can never remember the name of that place, did they have to go to historic preservation? Because that's in a historic district.
So that is before my time, but it would have been in the historic districts. So under the ordinance currently, it should have gone for
Should have
review.
gone, okay.
Yeah.
No, I'm just curious,
Yeah.
Okay.
And there was one other thing I wanted to mention. So,
Absolutely.
Counselor Chittum looked at the change that we proposed to historical significance. He used to be on the Historic Preservation
Yep.
Review Board. So he had suggested, so I'd already mentioned the
Okay,
hyphening.
so exactly what, on this, what are you, where are we
September
looking?
9th memo.
The September 9th memo.
Okay.
Okay,
The bottom portion.
okay.
He had two suggestions. So the first I'd already mentioned was hyphenating everyday architecture. And then he suggested possibly further simplification by eliminating builder, designer, architect, or landscaper, and just using the word practitioner. So
Sure.
staff doesn't have a strong opinion on that. There might be some benefit to having those examples given, but we did want to just mention that that was a suggestion he had in
Right.
case that's
Absolutely,
of
Alex?
interest to the
I
board.
think keeping the examples is fine. There's nothing really gained by practitioner.
Yeah, I kind of agree with Alex. I like to have it enumerated in lots of different words, and that way, if somebody comes up and is like a builder and he's not an architect and he doesn't feel he's a practitioner, it might be more clear, I think, if we leave all of those words. Yep. Okay. Anybody else have any questions, comments?
I have a comment.
Mark? Yes, absolutely.
So, or a question.
Yep.
So, I just want to clarify, so not every building within the historic district is a historic building, but all the ones that are red are historic buildings?
Right.
Or designated as historic.
Yeah,
That may
I
mean
get
that there's
I don't know-
others
I don't
that
know
are
how
historic,
people
but-
define significant then, at that point. I mean, really, I could point out any any of those buildings and go, what's significant about this?
Yeah.
But whatever, that's just my comment. Seems to me you're overdue, well, not you, but we've overdone historical significance for a lot of these buildings for no reason.
Yeah, just a tidbit of architecture that looks different or,
I
that's
haven't
been
even-
around forever,
It's supposed to be have
Yeah.
something meaningful from the past.
Yeah, what do
Can
they
anybody
have?
tell me what 194 Lisbon Street is, how it's meaningful from the past? I have no concept of that. So that's just my comment.
Yeah.
Significance is a bit
Can
easily,
that historical
easily met.
designation be reversed?
I believe there is a process for that. I apologize, I'm not an expert in this, but I assume that there is a process to delist a structure. I don't know what's entailed with that. And it would depend, I think, on what the listing is, if it's only, local and state, or if it's been federally declared. So probably there's different processes.
Yeah.
Alex?
There is a process for it, so you can actually go online, and there's a number of buildings that were in Lewiston that have been delisted from the National Register, either because they burnt down, or were demolished, or just were delisted because people felt that it was not valid to have it on the list anymore. So it's certainly not set in stone. I think often a big motivator, from my understanding of historical districts, is people often get their buildings listed for tax purposes. So you can get tax credits when you do renovations. It does limit
What you can do?
things, you know, in terms of like, well, if, you know, the building was renovated with historic tax credit money, then that renovation sort of incorporated into the fabric. And so undoing that in the future can be tough. I've heard anecdotally of like a storefront on Lisbon Street that just isn't, as far as I can tell, nothing too remarkable about it, but no one can really touch the facade because it was paid for with historic tax credit money. So,
Yeah.
there's a material difference for the building owner if they get it listed in terms of historic tax credits. It does limit what they can do with the building. There are ways to get delisted, but, you know, is the juice worth the squeeze is really the question for the building owner. And I wouldn't be surprised if a lot of the buildings you were pointing out, Mark, were listed for tax credit purposes.
Probably. Or
But
just
there's
because-
also, you know, some.
Or just because people were like, oh, well, that's the Garslon building, and Garslon was this guy that lived,
Right.
you know,
Yes.
100 years ago, and he was really important back then, and he's not anymore. So,
Yeah.
you know, so I mean, I don't know. To me, it just seems a very low bar to become to determine what's significant. But that's
Yeah.
just me.
Yeah.
Just a comment, not
That's
really.
it is a subjective thing, for sure, you
Yeah.
know? It's
Yeah.
like the Good Architecture Award. Like,
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And I think, you know, just another little editorial point to what you were saying earlier, my dad wrote some historic board stuff when he was a city planner, but, so it's a family thing, but, you know, the sort of the 50-year mark being this time when we start to think about buildings as historic, and that's, like, you just look at any architectural style, and when they tend to be demolished is around 50 years, because that's when they start falling apart. So buildings from the 60s and 70s.
Geez, my house could be historic.
It definitely could, if you're,
Built in 1959, 60.
and have there been any dramatic modifications to it, any
Yeah,
changes?
outside.
Yeah, well, there you go, you should look into it, Lucy.
Oh, hell no.
It could be the Lucy Bisson Historic Site,
Good
you know.
Lord, no.
A
No, no, no,
significant
no.
member of the Lewiston Planning Board
Good
lived
grief.
here at one point.
Yeah, okay. Yeah. Okay, moving on. So I would entertain a motion if someone wants to make the motion, please. It's right here. I have it right here. If somebody wants to read it and make the motion, please.
Sure.
Okay.
Making a motion pursuant to Article 12, Section 4, and Article 17, Section 5 of the Zoning and Land Use Code to send a favorable recommendation to the City Council for the amendments to Appendix A, Zoning and Land Use Code, Article 15, Significant Building and Districts.
Remodify it, you said Article 12, it's Article 7.
Yeah,
it is
sorry,
at 7?
it's to 7.
Oh, geez, I missed, so, sorry, corrected, Article 7.
Thank you.
My brain's not working for Roman numerals today.
Okay.
Alex, could you also make reference to the change to the definition of historical significance?
Including the changes to the definition of historical significance presented in the memo from September 9th, 2024.
Okay, and Amy is the second. And I neglected to name JAMA as a voting member earlier in the meeting. So JAMA, you will be voting this evening, so you can vote on this. So any further discussion? And then I'll call the roll. Roger Dupree,
Yes,
Mark Roy,
Yes.
Michael Marcotte.
Yes.
Alex Pine,
Yes.
Amy Smith,
Yes.
JAMA Mohammed,
Yes.
Lucy Bisson, yes. Okay, so this moves on.
Quick note for city staff. I know some of us weren't super close to our mics. Do you think it got picked up? Good.
Yeah, I think we should be all set. Okay, so the next other business is the planning board initiating a changes to develop a planned unit development, PUD, ornament. ordinance. Craig, tell us what a PUD is.
A PUD. So from the memo, dated September 5th, 2024, a PUD is a planned unit development, and it is defined broadly because it can be used broadly. It is more of a, or it is part of the process, but it can also be a sort of an ordinance. So our current ordinance has different regulations for larger developments. We've got single-family cluster development. We've got a few other ordinances in Article 13, Section 7 and 8. We are looking to maybe streamline those articles and add either add or revise them. The form yet is still fairly, we are still fairly in preliminary talks. But we're looking to do a planned unit development ordinance, and we need you to initiate that so we can start planning.
Okay. Any questions or comments from anyone on the board? I mean, we're just initiating, we're not talking about anything, we're just saying, go ahead and put it together and bring it to us, and
Yeah,
we'll talk
and
about it
we'll
at some point.
Put together some language in a few weeks or however long it takes and bring it right
Okay.
back to you.
Okay. Will someone make Michael? I'm sorry.
Just curious as to the underlying reason.
So we've had some conversations with developers, just members of the public asking fairly open questions about looking to do some, just looking for some more flexibility in in the future development. We have also.
I can give a couple examples of.
Yeah.
So one example is, we've looked at Auburn's planned unit development ordinance, and it allows flexibility in road width. So if somebody wanted to, it also allows flexibility with not carving every house lot into a lot. So if somebody wanted to maintain ownership of a parcel of land and have a number of rentable houses on it and have those closer together, you could waive some of the standards as far as that goes. You wouldn't have to require that each house is on a separate lot. You wouldn't have to require the amount of frontage necessarily because of that. The road width could possibly be narrowed a bit or shortened if you had smaller frontages to provide more of an economy to allow more homes to be built on that parcel. We also don't have any provision for someone to do a tiny home park, like a mobile home park. Similar situation if somebody wanted to own all the land in common among the members, or have one person own the land and rent the pad sites to people. We don't have a provision to do those sorts of things. Right now, Lewiston's ordinance is very lot heavy, where everything has to be carved into a lot that meets the lot size and meets the frontage, and it potentially creates these barriers to people doing other types of development and some creative solutions for creating housing. So we've had a couple of different situations over the last couple of years where people have come in with ideas, and we haven't had a great mechanism for allowing that to move forward. And it was suggested to us that we look at what Auburn is allowing. And we have, and we've talked to Auburn staff, and there's some flexibility that they allow that we think could be beneficial for us to explore.
Okay, great. Any other questions, comments? I entertain a motion if someone wants to make a motion.
I'd be happy to make a motion. Oh, you already got it open. So we're making a motion to initiate code amendments summarized in this memo pursuant to Article 7, Section 4, and Article 17, Amendment, Section 5.
Okay, do I have a second?
Second?
Okay. And any further discussion? And then, in case, I'll call the roll. Roger Dupree?
Yes.
Mark Roy?
Yes.
Michael Marcotte?
Yes.
Alex Pine?
Yes.
Amy Smith?
Yes.
Gemma Mohammed?
Yes.
Lucy Bisson, yes, all right. And there are no minutes to be read. Is there anything else that anyone wants to bring up during other business In that case, I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Do I have a second?
Second?
All those in favor? Yay, all right. All right, that was a short one tonight. Absolutely, absolutely. Make up for some of the really big ones. All right, guys, do we have meetings, anything on the schedule for 2 weeks?
Yes, we do.
Okay.
September 23rd.
23rd, okay.
No, we'll wait until later.
Okay, so, all righty, well, we'll see you guys on the 23rd.
Thank you, Miss Lucy, sounds good.
I'm sorry? Okay.